So, total 3.4 expungements. For those of you that don't know, this is a process by which an individual can petition to have their case dismissed pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4. What people often misinterpret or misunderstand is that they call this an expungement. It is not truly an expungement. What I mean by that is, if you were to attempt to purchase a firearm or undergo any sort of official law enforcement type background check, your prior felony conviction, which you thought you had dismissed pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4, is still reflected on your rap sheet. And so the other thing to understand is that Penal Code Section 1203.4 expressly states that this section does not restore a person's right to own or possess firearms. What a 1203.4 expungement does do is it allows you to state on a typical employment application, truthfully, that you were not convicted of a felony. But again, the exception to this is if the employment application is like an official law enforcement type employment application, meaning there's a full-fledged background check that's done pursuant to your application, usually for things like working with children, purchasing a firearm, that kind of thing. So generally speaking, simply because you have a 1203.4 expungement on your record does not restore your right to own or possess firearms. And so you're sort of stuck with, again, the 17B Prop 64 process, which just because you had a 1203.4 expungement doesn't mean that you're prohibited from then seeking a 17B at a later date. You can do that still. Because again, your record is still your record, and there are various ways in which you can get it corrected. What people often think a 1203.4 expungement does is it gets rid of the record, which, like I said, it doesn't do that. However, there is a process in California to do that. You have to have a petition to seal your record and have a court order that. Usually that's for very limited circumstances, i.e., you were charged and you were determined to be found not guilty, or the arrest was dropped for whatever reason, the charge was dropped for whatever reason. But again, that's something that you have to get a court order for. And that's very limited in its application. That would truly then remove that entry from your rap sheet entirely if you were to get an order from a court to seal your record. But again, that's a very limited application. But if you did get such a order, that would, of course, clear that from your rap sheet, and that wouldn't, therefore, prohibit you from owning or possessing firearms, because that would be something that, when they go to do a background check, they wouldn't actually see that on your rap sheet anymore. That petition process to have your record sealed is also something that you can do if you're getting what's called an undetermined status from the California Department of Justice, because you have an arrest with no conviction information reflected on your rap sheet. And that's usually because of, like I said, there was no actual charges that were brought. Those charges were dropped for whatever reason. And of course, that's something that doesn't necessarily get updated in the system because the court doesn't take its time and do its due diligence to reflect that on your rap sheet. That happens quite a lot, especially from older convictions. I see that a lot, usually from, prior to 2000. Someone's got an entry on their rap sheet showing that they were arrested, but then for whatever reason, there's no subsequent disposition, meaning that there's no court case that followed that, whatever. So that's another thing you can do to address your missing disposition information from various offenses.